We started 2025 with a fantastic budget, a great plan for the year on how we would improve our lives financially. And then we have thrown a huge wrench into those plans by adding a big new expense, one that could potentially put us back into debt. And because I have shared my own story here about getting out of debt, paying off over $80,000 in debt, and paying off $40,000 while I was doing this channel and making videos, I want to be fully transparent with you guys and share the expense, why we're doing it, and why we are considering potentially using debt to make it happen. So buckle up and let's talk about what we have changed in 2025 with our finances, because it's really affected everything from our desire to buy a house to our monthly budget and all of the savings I had planned for travel. Okay, so first, let's talk about what this expense actually is and why I haven't mentioned it before this video. And the reason for that is because it's not my expense to talk about. It is something my husband has decided to do, and up until now, I wasn't really allowed to talk about it because he hadn't notified the people that needed to know about it before it was on the internet. So he has decided to go back to school, and I am so excited for him, so proud of him. But school is not a cheap expense. It is pretty substantial, and he is going back to finish a finance degree. So he will be doing all of the finance classes he needs to get that degree. Luckily, all of the previous credits he had when he went to school way back before still count toward this degree. So he is able to use the general ed classes he already took when he was studying something else back in the day and apply them now. So that means he only has to take finance classes. So that's one good part of this decision. We are basically going to pay for half a degree. So this is happening because my husband did not start in finance, obviously, and he was working in a role before, and the finance team at his company looked at his skills and realized that they could utilize him. So they moved him to the finance team, and he has thrived there. He has done so well, but he has zero background in finance. He is great with statistics and logic and all of that, but he hasn't taken things like an accounting class. So he felt that it would be a benefit to him and his current role and his current knowledge to go back and actually get the education in things like finance and accounting. So he has been doing those classes. He is actually currently in an accounting class, which is why it's kind of on the top of my mind because I've heard a lot about accounting, good times. And he is really doing well with his studies already. He's off to a good start, and I think it is going to benefit him in his current role and for any future opportunities that come his way in the future. So it's a great choice for him. It's at a point in his life where he feels like he can do it and he can add that educational aspect because he is in a role that he loves, he's doing well, and he has the support to do so. But this is a finance channel and it's been about our personal finances for a long time. So let's talk about what this actually costs. And roughly it's going to cost about $20,000. So since he only has to do half of the schooling requirement to get a degree, it's about half the cost that it would be in total, roughly $20,000 to take all of those finance classes. He is doing this on top of working his full-time job. So he's only taking a couple classes at a time, 1 to 3 classes at a time. So $20,000 over the next 2-ish years. Basically every semester he's taking a couple classes. So it's a few $1,000s. So depending on what he's taking and how many classes he's taking, we are going to be paying anywhere from like $750 a month to $1,500 a month. That's not a unreasonable amount of money to get this degree, and that is a fine amount of money. But did we plan for it before he started? Not necessarily. We do not have $20,000 set aside to pay for this, obviously. We did not put this money aside before he decided to go back to school. This was something that isn't necessarily an impulse, but is something he's been thinking about for a long time. However, didn't think we'd actually do it. We thought we would buy a house. We thought we would do this and that and all these other things. And then finally, it just came down to like, now's the time, just get this done. So we're not thinking about it forever. But at the same time, how are we going to pay for this? We didn't budget for this. This was not in the January budget. This was not a thing that we had planned. So because it's going to cost roughly $20,000, it depends monthly the amount that we would pay based on how many classes he's taking, but it would be anywhere from like $750 to $1,500 a month, which is a good amount of money and obviously not something I had planned in the budget for this year. Which leads us to the question, how are we going to pay for this? And that is where the question of should we go back into debt even came up. When you are thinking about paying for school, you have a few different options. Obviously, you can pay as you go. You can pay cash each time you take a class. You can just pay for it outright. You can take on student loans, so you can get private loans or you can get federal loans. Or you can take out debt in another way. You could take out a HELOC and use your money from your house to pay for your classes, or you could take out a personal loan and use that money to pay for classes. It really gives you a lot of options on how to pay for a big expense that you had not planned on doing. Because we are doing about $20,000 divided over roughly 2 years, it's about $10,000 per year that we had not necessarily set aside or planned for. So what are we going to do? How are we going to pay for it? I did honestly consider getting loans for a while and then paying them back after he's done, because he should get a bump in salary after he is done. He should make more money. But I struggled so long to pay off my own student loans. Do I want to do that again? The answer is no, not really. I don't necessarily want to take on student loans again. Even though I am not fully against student loans, I just personally don't want to do that. So that leaves us with options of taking on debt another way or actually paying for it as we go. You might guess we are paying for it as we go. We've already paid a couple months of this. We've already kind of worked into the budget, but it has completely changed our financial plan for the year and our budget. And if you have been following my house savings updates, you will realize that this is one of the reasons why we are not buying a house anytime soon or right now. We probably would have gone ahead with purchasing a house if we were not paying this big amount of money per month towards schooling, but life changes, plans change, and this is what we're doing instead. And if you've watched this house saving updates, you probably know that we do have $30,000 set aside in savings. So we could just use that to pay for school, right? However, in my brain, that is sacred money set aside for the next house, and I will not be touching it. It already has a purpose. It already has a plan. And that money is going to hopefully not be used. If we have to, we have to. But the plan is to currently cash flow his classes and pay for them every single month with the money that we have coming in and make it work. So what that means is, once again, we have to cut back while prices are rising and try to save as much money as possible each month so that we can divert the money toward this expense. And we are also going to be cutting my sinking funds for travel. So we will not be traveling much, if at all, this year or next. Maybe next year we'll be able to kind of ramp it back up. For this year, I probably will not be going on the trips that I had planned and thought about and hoped for. And instead, that money will be just going straight toward paying for the college education expenses. I am super excited that he gets to do that, even if it means for a year or two, we don't get to go on trips. We don't get to do any of the extra stuff, and we have to kind of cut back, because I think that's going to, in the long term, turn into something that is so much better than going to the beach or New York this year. It's going to be a long-term play and plan that improves our lives overall and creates the best, happiest version of our family. So far, the cash flow plan is working. We have been able to do several months of paying for school without touching any of our savings or taking on any debt. So we do not plan to take on any debt or any student loans, and hopefully my savings stay intact through this experience. If they don't, it's fine, and we will come out on the other side and figure it out. That is our current plan and why we have changed things up with our finances. It is very exciting and a totally different direction that I haven't been able to talk about here on the channel for a while, and I'm so glad that I finally can, and I can share this news, because it definitely affects our money in a big way and maybe makes some other things make more sense and why we are doing things the way we've been doing them. I would love to know if you had a big expense like going back to school or having a big house repair. How would you pay for it? Would you cash flow it? Would you take on debt? Or would you figure something else out? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you guys, as always, for the support.